Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Matthew Shiner podcast. With a lot of these episodes, there are certain topics that stick out in my mind. Ideas that are, if you will, hot button topics. Topics that are quite tough to talk about and discuss, not because the answer is hard to find, but because people often do not want to hear or discuss these issues. They might upset certain people. This video fits into that category. A lot of times, the simplest answer to some of these questions in regards to our faith can be found in the Bible or the Catechism, and sometimes these answers can be found in documents written by popes or councils. And this video is no different. The simplest answer that we can find for this question is found within the Catechism. Recently, I was on Facebook and I saw a post by a Facebook page called Catholic Dress Code, and they put a photo of what they supposed was a high school dance, but who some have said is actually from a college. However, no matter what, there is no difference because I know for a fact that this is what it looks like in high schools or colleges, and it is a photo of many younger age girls wearing dresses that are very short, and the post reads, "For anyone who may be unaware of what children wear to high school dances today, here you go. This is a high school dance, maybe a sophomore level, I believe. Like someone just pointed out to me today, these were the bathing suits of the 50s, and even that was risque for that time period. Now who knows what's underneath? Who knows what people see when these young ladies bend over? It's quite a sad spectacle. I feel bad for our young men who are ill equipped to deal with such a situation. I feel bad for our young ladies who have been taught to fit in. You must have the least amount of clothing possible. Please pray for a change in modesty and a fear of the Lord. It's sadly lost." And I agree completely and wholeheartedly with that post. And I think that what it says is completely true. I have wanted to for a while done a video on modesty. Modesty is a thing that we have lost a sense of in our modern world, as the post points out, and often modesty is pitted as only a female issue. That females are often ones who solely dress immodestly. They wear very short shorts or shirts that leave bare in the middle or show a lot of skin in other ways. However, for men, there are other issues of modesty. For example, not wearing a shirt, when exercising or even in just posting photos on the internet. Bishop Paprocki of the Diocese of Springfield in Illinois recently made a video about modesty, especially in Mass. And modesty is important in Mass for sure. Modesty is important for Mass because we should give to the Mass, especially Christ present within the Eucharist at Mass, the utmost of our respect. Our attitude towards the Mass should not only be something in our minds, but something that we show in ourselves and the way we present ourselves. And as I believe I said in the previous episode, we should live out the sacrament, our Eucharistic faith, within our very day to day life. Here's what the Catechism says about modesty. This is the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraphs 250, 2521 to 2524. Purity requires modesty, an integral part of temperance. Modesty protects the intimate center of the person. It means refusing to unveil what should remain hidden. It is ordered to chastity, to whose sensitivity it bears witness. It guides how one looks at others and behaves towards them in conformity with the dignity of the persons and their solidarity. Modesty protects the mystery of persons and their love. It encourages patience and moderation in loving relationships. It requires that the conditions for the definitive giving and commitment of man and woman to one another be fulfilled. Modesty is decency. It inspires one's choice of clothing. It keeps silence or reserves where there is evident risk of unhealthy curiosity. It is discreet. There is a modesty of the feelings as well as of the body. It protects, for example, against the voyeuristic exploration of the human body in certain advertisements or against the socializations of certain media that go too far in the exhibition of intimate things. Modesty inspires a way of life which makes it possible to resist the allurements of fashion and the pressures of prevailing ideologies. The forms taken by modesty vary from one culture to another. Everywhere, however, modesty exists as an intuition of the spiritual dignity proper to man. It is born with the awakening consciousness of being a subject. Teaching modesty to children and adolescents means awakening in them respect for the human person. I'm sure one example of modesty that you can think of that societies often present is dresses for women or veils for women, and until the reforms of the Vatican Council, women often veiled in Mass, and still today many do veil for Mass. Regardless, modesty then is not just a respect to be given in mass to Christ. Modesty is also a respect given for ourselves and for humanity as a whole. What Catholics believe about our humanity is that we are a soul with a body. As I mentioned in the last video, we are made for a higher calling. We are made for the calling of God, and that is heaven. That is the heavenly treasures, rather than for the treasures of earth. Therefore, for the church and for its members, the soul is more important than the body, but the body is not unimportant. The body deserves respect and care because our body is a gift from God, given to us by God. Therefore, God asks of us to care for the body that He has given us. Therefore, we should care for it in many means. We should avoid giving it purposeful harm. We should avoid doing other things that might cause harm, such as drugs, for an example. However, I think that the words of the Catechism are very clear why we need to keep modesty and why it is important. I write here that modesty, like many other things, such as reason, are uniquely human. Dogs and cats and other animals, unlike humans, are not worried about modesty. They are not worried about showing too much skin or looking too provocative. This too has to do with reason, which is also uniquely human, but I digress. Modesty is important because it shows respect to who we are as male or female. As the Catechism says, many will say women should dress modestly because what will men think? As the Post mentioned, men are ill-equipped to think properly, if you will, which is true, and we should teach men to treat and think of women in a better way. Women should want to dress modestly, not because they don't want men to think a certain way, but because they should not want men to think of them in a sinful or wrong way. Women should also dress modestly because they have a respect for their body, as the Catechism says, hiding what ought to be hidden, and especially viewing their bodies as a gift from God. In the end, all things do relate back to that first vocation, the vocation of holiness. Because we want to grow in holiness with God, we want to, for example, go to Mass, or pray in the mornings and evenings, or pray before meals, or other things. I think you get my point. Because we view ourselves as holy, as children of God our Father, we have a respect for our bodies and the way in which we present ourselves to the world. However, we live in a very anti-Catholic world that does not share our values. I previously talked about the television show Holly Hobby, and one of these episodes features a sister starting in high school. Her sister invites her to dress in a different way. An accident happens where she has to take off a sweater, and under she has a shirt without sleeves, going against the dress code of the school. This causes an issue with the sister and the school and so on, who becomes unhappy with these rules, and one of the lines they use about it is the fact that if you go into any store, which does anyone go to a physical store to buy clothes anymore? The clothes meant for women go against often these rules in place that I am sure you know are in place at many schools. And this is something that cannot be discounted, that in the fallen society we live in, marked with our concupiscence, our society often does share or teach things that go in contrary to our Catholic teachings and beliefs. In my own life, in my high school, they had to take away girls' privilege to wear shorts, which shorts are allowed all year round, because the shorts they were wearing were too short. So what's the point? Modesty is important. It is something that we as Catholics believe in, an important thing that we should keep. Immodesty is something to be avoided. And something else important is especially modesty for Mass. I see many young women, dressed immodestly at Mass. When I was at the Sacré-Cœur Basilica in Paris, in France, they had a sign outside the door of the basilica reminding people to dress modestly, not to have clothing that doesn't cover their shoulders, and to have skirts that extend to the knee. I have a photo of it that I'll put up here, but I think you get the point. I don't know if this is in other places. I believe it is, especially at, like, churches in Europe. I saw another video online where it showed girls standing outside a church in Europe because they weren't allowed inside because of their immodest clothing they were wearing. And the comment was about how these churches are not merely tourist attractions, they are holy sites with history and which religious goings-on occur. Modesty is an important teaching. It is not merely a prudish thing we teach because we are old prudes or old curmudgeons. Rather, this teaches respect for others and ourselves and our sexuality and humanity as a whole. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Doing so helps us to spread this Catholic and Christian message to all. Please also consider supporting this channel on Patreon.